We are still together with Sandra Dodd. We decided to cut the interview we did with her into 2 episodes. So here we are. If you haven't heard the last week's episode, it was about YouTube and gaming and the fears parents can have about that. But we also wanted to go into how unschooling can be healing for us, the parents. So first of all, welcome to you, Sandra. Wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
The subject of how unschooling can help heal you as a parent, I would love to talk about that. And for me, it's a little difficult to figure out what part of the healing is being a parent and what part of the healing comes through the unschooling. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, because in your case, there will be no way to separate those.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I don't, if we were running a study, we would need some groups, to compare some groups that didn't have kids or did have kids or whatever, or didn't unschool, but we don't. And that's something that can't be helped. From the very, very beginning that I was writing about unschooling, people were going, I want to run a study. And I'm like, nope. I want to test your kids. Nope. Not just my kids, but all the kids of all the people in my group. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. Well, we need to follow up. Why? Who's paying for this follow-up? That doesn't make sense. Because anytime you test, then the test itself affects the responses. And it's no, don't mess with these kids. We're letting them grow up untested. That's part of the deal. And so even if your test isn't a school type test, but it's a stop December 1st, we're measuring everything. No. Why? No. So in a way, I think that made me seem unscientific to people who are saying we want to be scientific. Sorry, we don't want to mar the test subjects because they're not subjects. They're not test subjects. So anyway, so I was a little defensive of that, and not a little. And it came up less as time went on, I think. But sometimes people would do a study with a few volunteer families. My family was involved in one from MIT about I should send you a link to that. It was a study about families who did let their kids use the internet and what happened. But there are only 5 or 6 families in it, I think. So it was, I'm wary of a study that only has that many subjects. I was told when I studied psychology as a kid, I have an English degree, but I had a psychology minor. They said a good test needs to have at least 200 subjects. I hardly ever see tests with 200 anymore. It's like, oh, we interviewed 40 people. It's like, yeah, right. I could interview 40 people at the grocery store today, but that's still going to be the people who are at the grocery store by my house today. So anyway, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. That's true about everything. One thing I've said a lot of times is the best answer is usually it depends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does it depend on? Yeah. I didn't know, though, when I first started unschooling for the first probably 5 or 6 years, I had no idea that this was going to be healing to parents. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to help our kids learn outside of school, to create some alternative, really fun home school situation where they played all the time and where we just answered their questions, where you could see, are these things that the school reform people in the 1970s said would work, because they had done tests. They had done tests on lots of people on how learning works well. And then it just couldn't really work in the public schools. We're like, okay, these ideas are tested and proven. Let's do them. Let's do this stuff. Letting them choose what they read, letting them choose where they read, the little easy stuff that's schoolish. Moving on to learning math from games and playing, and math manipulatives was the school term. But just with playing with stuff and rearranging them and knowing that Lego's sometimes 2 layers high and sometimes 1 layer high. Don't talk about it. Don't say it's math. Give them a bunch of Lego. And then they figure those things out. So anyway, that worked well. And everything's working really well for all these kids. But it only works well when the parents are deschooling, when the parents are looking at their fears and their prejudices and their experiences and their definitions of learning and teaching and all of that. So the parents come with as school kids. The parents come as grown, sometimes wounded, sometimes wildly successful former school kids. So they are looking through school-colored glasses. They can't see at first what learning would look like in the absence of all of that terminology, schedule, semesters, units, all those school words. They're looking at unschooling through that. And it's inevitable. It's impossible not to at first. So then we're like, okay, we need to deschool. The best way to deschool is to watch how your kids learn and maybe think about how you learned the things that you didn't learn schoolishly. Like I learned to play piano and I learned to read music when I was really little. I could read music before I could read English. So for me, that was easy. And my parents didn't make me, I wanted to. So that was fine. And I always did music when I could. When I came out of college and went back to visit my teachers, I said, I finished college, I'm going to be a teacher. Every single person I talked to said, music? And I went, no, English. And I went, oh. Everybody I didn't know saw me as a musician, and I was just like, music is fun, but English is awesome, you know. So anyway, I went back to see how did I learn to play guitar, not with lessons. I figured it out. You know, somebody gave me a lesson, and I went, okay, got it. And I always still tell people, Imelda Martinez taught me to play guitar. She said, I did not. I showed you how to hold it. But she gave me what I needed to go on. And sometimes that's all it needs is calligraphy for years. And I had tried when I was young, I would buy calligraphy pens and ink and I would read the little flyer and I could not do it. One lesson of somebody showing me how to dip the pen and how to get the extra ink off and what angle to hold it and how hard to push. That's what I needed. That's what the paper couldn't tell me. So I saw that with my kids too, sometimes just visiting somebody who's doing something, sharpening knives or, you know, something physical, something like that. Like you may not be able to figure it out, but now there are YouTube videos. Now I'm going back to your prior.
Oh, no. They are awesome.
Now,
about whatever we want.
oh my gosh. Yeah. My kids now, they want to fix something or, you know, find something. They just go to YouTube and see how other people are doing it. I tiled a shower and I hadn't tiled for years. So it'd probably been 20 or 30 years since I had tiled anything and I was going to tile this shower. So I went to YouTube to see what's new. I thought some new technology or some new materials maybe. Nah, it's the same. But watching that video reminded me, if I start from the bottom and the top both and do my cutting in the middle, I was doing a mosaic anyway. So it's like, okay, it reassured me to see somebody else doing tile because I didn't want to invite anybody over. It was just, I've done tile before. But it really helped to go, okay, I forgot. Oh yeah, that's good. And so helping kids learn by just exposing them to seeing it done or being able to touch the materials. I had that. That was fine. I got it. So I'm in the business of, I started speaking at conferences not long after I started writing because I was writing and then had spoken to a couple of local New Mexico things with people that I knew from La Leche League. Then when they started having other conferences, it was like, who has ever spoken at any conference? Like, well, Sandra has. So I ended up getting to speak a lot, and that was helpful, organizing my thoughts to the point that I could summarize, you know, in an hour for people who have the attention span of 50 minutes. Yeah. I'm just, it's funny how schoolish sometimes conferences are, but what can you do?
They are.
So then one of the talks that I gave early on was called Unforeseen Benefits of Unschooling.
Unforeseen Benefits of Unschooling. Yeah.
Because I didn't know that it would make me nicer to my dog and my cats. But it did, because I started thinking like principles instead of rules. What does this dog need? What's natural for this dog? What does this dog want? And some people have put their doors upside down. So if there's a little window for you to look out and see who's there, they put that at the bottom so the dog can look out.
Oh, cute.
So what we decided to do was anytime the dog is at the door barking, open the door and let the dog look. A lot of people tell their dog, don't bark, shh, be quiet. Well, you don't know who's outside there. Godzilla could be in your front yard. You open the door. What do you have a dog for? You know, I mean, the dog is doing what dogs do. So we would always open the door and let her check. And sometimes she would walk out and sometimes she would just stay there and smell. And then she would relax or not. And if she relaxed, we go, it's okay to the dog. Yeah, okay. And I thought, this dog is so much happier now. And so I would do that to my cats. What do these cats want? Instead of batting the cat away, I didn't want them on the table or the counters. I kept batting them off of that. But, you know, they can get on the desk. They can get on the bed. And it's like, what do the cats need? What do they want? You know, what food do they like? And a lot of people don't think about that with cats. You know, they go by what the vet said or whatever, and they ignore the cat. So I thought, well, that's interesting. I started being different with trees in my yard. Like, okay, this tree doesn't like New Mexico. Why do I try to force this plant to grow here when I can find plants that want to grow here? So it just became a sort of an overall, what do people and things and animals want? What's their motivation? And I can help them. Not totally conscious. I wasn't like running around telling everybody, oh, listen. But I started to feel it in myself.
Yeah.
And people started saying, oh, I feel so much better now that I've deschooled. I'm getting along with my husband better now that I've deschooled. Now that I've relaxed into not caring when my kids go to bed, or not being mad at my kids for not putting their laundry in the hamper every single time, I found out that I don't like nag my husband as much. And it was like, oh, that's nice. So the first few reports are like, oh, great. But then they started to pile up and I started collecting them. And that's why there's so many pages on my site, because when there's another topic, I like collect a lot of evidence there. It's like, if you want to read about this, here's a page. And it's odd, but it's like I was talking to Pam Laricki, I guess. No, it's like a pharmacy, I said. It's like a pharmacy. Some people don't need this topic. It just sits there. It's a rare one. It's specialized. But somebody comes and brings that question, I can send them that link.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you're a psychologist. There are some others who have come through, and some have stayed and some aren't practicing anymore and some are. But it was interesting. At first, I was really self-conscious because I realized at some point that what I was doing, the kind of ideas I was espousing and putting out there were cognitive therapy. To some degree, it was like, you're calling it this, that's your problem. You're stuck with this word. You're stuck with the way you've defined that teaching needs that learning needs a teacher. That they taught themselves. Like, what if you just don't say taught? Then what happens? Then this whole ocean of world of learning opens up. If you step away from the taught, teacher, school, shore, there's learning galore that has nothing to do with teachers and teaching. So get out there. Stop saying teaching. Well, I know I shouldn't call it teaching, but it's like, stop thinking it. So that's where I thought I've crossed the line now. And there used to be people who said, we're not therapists. We shouldn't be giving anybody advice about anything that therapists give advice about. I'm like, what? People talking to their friends is that.
Yes.
I'm really mad at my boyfriend. I don't know, he's making me mad. So whatever they say is or is not therapy. It's either support, which can be one of the worst things anybody can get, to go, oh, you're right, he sucks, and you have never done anything wrong in your entire life, but this guy sucks. That's not therapeutic. Can be really destructive. But yeah, the guy might suck. But it's when you just talk to your friends or you talk to unschoolers, you take what you get. And I'm like, I didn't say I was a therapist. I'm not saying that at all. But people who were psychologists would come on the side and go, hey, you know what you just did? You know what that was? I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So I didn't know that. But it turned out that when people decided to give something up, they first needed to figure out what that was that they were giving up. Part of deschooling. Like, I'm really stuck here. I really think that math has to be taught in order, and I'm waiting for them to see enough geometry that I can start with algebra or whatever, right? Whatever order they think that it has to be. And so once they could figure out what words were stuck in them, the words that were making a barrier between them and relaxing, then they could, I case by case. And none of these discussions were just me and somebody. It was always a big group. And we had so many math and engineering kind of people. I mean, Joyce was an engineer, Pam was a math professor, but there were others. And so, sorry, we had biologists and all kinds of people. So we knew.
Sandra, sorry, there's
To the dogs?
there's someone at the door. I need to see who it is for the dogs.
But I can talk.
Yeah, I will
Okay.
just. You can keep on. I will.
All right. So anyway, I lost my place.
Engineers and mathematicians.
So when a question came, it didn't get just answered by one person. It was like a washing machine, kind of. It's like the thing goes in and it gets tumbled around and it gets smoothed off, or a rock tumbler maybe. So the question comes in and everybody plays with it and says, well, what about this? What about that? What about that? And we started seeing that even the people who were helping were benefiting from re-examining their own ideas and thoughts. And so this whole discussion, I've been in a series of discussions. The formats and the sites that they were on, the message boards or whatever, would eventually be taken down for one reason or another. Some of them were costing a lot of money, and a magazine went out of business or whatever. But we started to see that the value of these discussions that had a few hundred people in was benefiting the parents in the discussion itself, in the exchange, in the, I have this problem, and everybody's going, well, try this. It's not only helping that person. And we early on said, okay, we're not answering you. We're looking at your question, at the thing that you've brought.
Yeah.
The problem you've brought. So don't take this personally. We're going to talk about this nugget of information you've laid on the table. Lots of people would come and say, I've been reading that group for 5 years, but I never posted on the side. Like they would say, I've never posted. But when I'm reading it, I think, what's Sandra going to say? What's Pam going to say? What's Deb Lewis going to say? What's Skylar going to say? And by just them learning enough about those people and those ideas and those fields of interest, Skylar is an anthropologist, by them looking at it through those other people's angles, they were learning so much, even if they didn't participate in the discussion. And so it was a really high level of philosophical inquiry, scientific inquiry into those questions, because my goal, I wasn't always running the groups, but when I was, my goal was to keep the information in such a good state that other people could come and read it later. So if anybody gave bad advice, we would jump them. We would say, okay, wait. The problem with this is it leads back toward a curriculum. It leads back toward unit studies. It leads back toward control. It doesn't lead toward the parents relaxing. So in the attempt to get the parents to relax and accept and change enough that they could let the kids have more choices and see the learning that was happening in activities that the parents weren't interested in or didn't know about, the parents themselves were, it's like combing tangled hair. You have to start at the ends. You can't like go up here, your comb is just stuck and broken. You have to start at the end and untangle and untangle and untangle. And that ended up being how deschooling was. And sometimes you comb something out and you come to a tangle you didn't even expect. So childhood traumas would come up, or periods of time when it didn't go well for the kid, or really did go well for the kid. So we, even though people might be really deschooled for an 8-year-old, it's like, I am it, I have it, we're going 90 miles an hour, it's great, nothing ever goes wrong. It's like, okay, wait, but it's possible that when he gets to be 12 or 15, it's going to trigger something in your memories, your expectations, and something that happened to you at that age, or something that you think, okay, that's fine for a 9-year-old, but by the time you're 12, you need to know this and this. Sometimes that happened different, who knows what, for different people. But then we said, let's watch for that. And a lot of people started coming in and reporting, okay, everything was fine. And then at the age that my parents got divorced, or at the age that I was in the hospital, or at the age that I got an award at school and started getting a lot of attention, then I started getting fritzed out. You know, I couldn't relax anymore. I started being very reactionary. And go, okay, well, now we know to warn other people about that. That was cool.
I think in my story as an unschooler, it really came as a surprise for me how much it had to be about me. So it wasn't really hard to let the kids do whatever they wanted, except it was hard inside me. I mean, they know how to unschool themselves, and I didn't really doubt that they would be able to create a meaningful and fun and interesting day for themselves if I would just stop telling them what to do. But the actual stopping me, that was the hard part. And in the beginning, I was in this mindset of mothering, being me, doing things for my children, helping them with things, a service kind of role that I played. And I had a hard time. In the beginning, I found it sort of selfish in a way, do I really have to think so much about me? This is not about me. I want my kids to thrive. I'm like, I have my wounds and bruises and I'm fine. We can look at that in 20 years when they're adults. And this whole shift of the mindset that I had to work on me and pay attention to me, that was, I don't know, everything. It was very hard for me to actually go into that gear because I found it irrelevant or selfish or, I don't know, really weird. But it has been the most important element, really.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents, they want it to be easy and not take much time. So when they find out that the time it takes is a time that you might have been sleeping or watching a movie, it's like it becomes a little bit intrusive once the parents start to untangle themselves and recover. They didn't expect that, but usually by then they're committed to unschooling because their kids are having success, their kids are having fun. And then if it happens gradually and naturally, it's helpful. But yeah, they didn't expect they were going to have to do all that personal examination or work. I didn't.
I didn't either. I didn't say, even though I did know about it, I thought it would be sort of like a side effect thing, but it really does take center stage. It's all very often what it's about. My oldest son, who is now 18, he says sometimes, why are you guys making a podcast about unschooling? You don't know what it is. You were not unschooled. I'm the expert here. And he's right. But then on the other hand, the listeners are not the unschooled children, but the other parents who were in school and want to unschool. So it goes back into this element of deschooling, how we understand what we're doing and how we try to do something for our children.
What are you providing for them and what are you avoiding for them? And Joyce Federell described it really well one day. She said, the kids aren't unschooling, they're learning. The kids are learning. The parents are unschooling because they're providing an environment. That's what the unschooling is seeing how learning can take place with certain circumstances and providing those circumstances. The kids don't need to know all about that. Holly did. So my kids are Marty, Holly, and Kirby. That's not the right order. Kirby, Marty, Holly. They were within 5 years of each other. So Kirby didn't care. He kind of knew what was going on. He's answered interviewers' questions sometimes and done fine, but he didn't really care. And Marty didn't really care, but he went with me to a conference when he was 13. And he said, Mom, I didn't know you knew all that stuff. So that's, he was just oblivious, politely oblivious, and that's fine. Holly, though, from the time she was very little, would hang around with the moms and hear what they were saying. And she was always really interested in other people's houses. If she went to visit somebody else's house, she would come back and report. They don't have their silverware like we do. They have it like this. She just was really interested in the fact that people could just choose how to organize their houses, their kitchens, their bedrooms, and rules about the dirty clothes go by the washing machine or in something in your room. She cared. So she saw unschooling that way too. Different families did things different ways, and she was fascinated. So she's always known a lot about it, but not because she was unschooled, but because she was interested.
Yeah.
And she liked to talk to moms. She liked to talk to other moms. So that was interesting for me to see 3 different kids' exposure to being unschooled. And one time a reporter asked Kirby, how is this compared to school? And Kirby said, I have no basis for comparison. So that could be a response to your son too. It's like, well, what do you know? In a way, because this is your life. You're learning. You're living a life of learning. We're suffering through trying to change ourselves enough to not mess that up.
Yeah.
One of the things I see when I look at our children, and that's why I may be in doubt what of it is true unschooling and what of it is just true parenting and seeing some kind of mirror in yourself with them growing up, is I see them grow up with so much more confidence than I had, where and part of that I take to be from the unschooling, from not being forced to be in a classroom with 24, 28 others, where you kind of needed to survive. And my survival strategy was being fun and outgoing and very social, and I can see that now, how my children are so much more in sync with who they are. And that is the healing part for me, to look at them and to see, can you be like that when you're 15? That is, I said, okay, maybe I still have some parts I can grow on. Maybe I don't need to try to impress people all the time when I talk with them, or maybe I can learn to chill some more. And where with the whole learning part, I have always learned through making projects in my mind. I didn't have a lot of interest in school. I survived and did okay, but I've never really been in doubt of the learning after the first few years. So for me, what I see is the difference of growing up in a schooled environment and growing up for yourself, the difference it makes in the how they are in themselves, how they are being. I find that very fascinating, and I'm trying to learn from that still. They know who they are on a level I didn't.
Humans need a hierarchy. We don't know how to act if we don't know in a situation, whether it's just a family or a party or a classroom, who's who like this. It's not something that people would like to prescribe or create, but I don't think it can be helped. So if school wasn't so long and irritating and constant and like it is, then it would be easy, because the kids would be the kids and the teachers would be the alpha people that they listen to. But it becomes, the relationships in school don't usually become students with teachers, but it's students with other kids, which is okay. It's not a crime. But so within that group of 24, 28, there becomes a hierarchy, and people know who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, who are reliable, who's smart, who's wounded. And then sometimes that causes problems. But even in the absence of problems, even if those kids are all like calm and accepting, those relationships still exist. So you're building a culture, sort of Lord of the Flies style in a way, minus the island and the cannibalism or whatever. When I was a teacher, I knew that to manage that group, I only needed to influence a couple or three kids. So I knew which kids, if they go, if they understand, if they accept, if they be quiet, or whatever it is I need them to do, if they will come over here to the gym now quickly, that the rest will go. So I didn't try to make a speech to all of them to persuade them. I just told those few leader type kids, the kids that the other kids wanted to be with, and like, we need to do this today. We need to go over here at this certain time. Let's go. And then we all went. It's like if you have a pack of hunting dogs or sled dogs, you know which dog to talk to, and the other dogs will come. So that can seem a little cold-hearted and clinical, but it was easier and better than creating a situation where some of the kids didn't want to go because there's a reactionary energy in there too. Like, oh, well, she wants us all to do this. Oh, I'm not going to do that. So it was a weird kind of crowd management trick that I got. But unschoolers aren't involved in that. They don't get that. They don't have to learn those coping skills about how to, the teachers almost become like spies or jailers or something. Like they're a different level of person. They're not in the social group. They're outside of it. So teachers are treated with suspicion and rejection, and it's not cool to hang around with them in general. Some kids do and get away with it, but depending on the kid. So that there's this whole thing that people who went to school know, whether they thought about it and analyzed it or not, they're familiar with it. And so then when an unschooled family is out and people come and say, what grade are you in? And they go, I don't go to school. Immediately they're like outside of that whole thing. And they're used to respecting their parents because their parents have earned some respect, or their parents aren't threatening them or scaring them off or controlling them to the point that they want to be where their parents aren't. So they're able to interact with all kinds of ages and kinds of people on a one-to-one basis without saying, oh, I'm sorry, you're in a grade higher or lower than I am, so I am required to defer or bully or whatever based on that. They don't have any of that. So that whole school overlay being gone, their interactions with each other, with their siblings, with their parents, with their neighbors, is just a whole different thing. And it's awesome to see it.
I remember, so this is something like 10 plus years ago when we started, when I finally found out to change gears and see, okay, I need to do a lot of inner work if this is to be what I want it to be. And I accepted that. Then my next problem was, so now what? Am I just ruining everything all the time because I haven't done that deschooling work yet? And my question is, if we could talk about how to avoid that stress when you're beginning. You know you're going to make some rookie mistakes. You know you haven't detangled all of your stuff that is your schooled mind, but you want to unschool your children. How can we feel okay about ourselves, and what are the pitfalls maybe to avoid? How can we make sure we don't ruin things while we do the inner, I mean, the inner work has to be done and it takes time.
Last week
Am I asking 9 questions on top of each other, or do I make some sort of...
No, I got it. The other day, I think on Radical Unschooling Info, the group on Facebook, somebody said, I need help to deschool. What do I need to do? And so people are throwing stuff out, what helped them. And I said, do these things, roll back a little bit, watch what they're doing, give them choices, give them a chance to just play. And meanwhile, don't screw it up. And somebody who'd been in the group for less than 2 weeks responded and said, well, Sandra, I really like your ideas, but don't screw it up is a little too harsh, don't you think? And I said, nope, no, because that's the whole thing parents need to do, is not screw it up. And she's talking about deschooling. So every time a parent comes in and goes, oh, okay, I'm really worried, let's do math today. Or, okay, I'm really worried, so you need to try to learn to read. I did that. I did 2.5 reading lessons with my oldest when he was 6. And he was in tears, and I regret it now. Like right now, I just got emotion about it. I'm not gonna cry or anything, but yeah, it's not good. So if parents go back and forth too much, they do screw it up, because pretty soon the kids don't trust that they're gonna leave it alone. They assume that they're gonna go back. So the kids don't relax in unschooling. Why should they get their hopes up? Why should they bother to play? Or else they binge like crazy. They go crazy and start watching all the TV on earth and don't go to bed and stuff, because they think any day now their mom's going to take it back. That their mom went temporarily crazy and said, okay, you don't have to do lessons, and you can wake up when you want to. And they don't trust the mom. So if the mom doesn't calmly and gradually change things and stay there, then it's not going to really work. It's not going to take hold. And some moms have gone back and forth 10 times. I'm just 3. I think 3 is about the limit of, I don't know. I'm just making this up. No, don't anybody quote that 3. It's not like after 3, give it up.
No,
but
no.
many, it's too many for the mom to not be able to even try to relax. Try to not talk about school for a week. How about that? Just try. You might think about it, but keep it to yourself. And then gradually start not thinking about it. Instead of thinking about school all the time, you're not there anymore. Are you still at school? Are you sitting in the principal's office looking out the window, unschooling your kids from there? Don't do that. Step away from the school. Don't look back over your shoulder at the school. Keep walking. So emotionally and mentally move toward where your kids are. If your kids are having a really good time talking with their little stuffed animals or whatever, they don't do that in school. So it must not be important. Don't, stop thinking that. See what they are doing. What are they learning? They're storytelling and language and acting, maybe. I don't know. There are things that are happening when kids are doing that. They're processing their own ideas. I remember getting in trouble one time because I was playing in the closet floor with some little animals, toys, dolls. And I said, and one of the kids says, where's Papa? My grandfather. Where's Papa? Papa's dead. And my mom flipped out, and she blasts in there and starts saying, what are you doing? I didn't have another doll to play Papa. I didn't have one. You know, if I'd had another doll, maybe Papa would have been alive. I don't know. You know, it was just the practicalities of the moment. And she thought, you know, don't ever wish that somebody was dead. And years later, I found out what personal trauma of hers this had to do with. But it didn't have anything to do with me when I was 4 and playing in the closet floor. So anyway, yeah, even without unschooling, sometimes parents can swoop in and throw their trauma down and you don't even know what's going on. So unschooling parents have a great danger of doing that because it's not personal family trauma about death. It's just little trauma about school.
Yeah. But what is it with the whole deschooling and being an unschooling parent that helps heal you as a person? And I don't know if I should be able to find some example, but I've just talked with a lot of unschooling parents, and a lot of them say that they find it healing for their own both relationship to how it was to learn, but also on personal levels.
Yeah, I know. Before I was unschooling, I went through I was in 2 organizations, both of which required some personal reflection. One was Adult Children of Alcoholics. It's related to Al-Anon, to AA and Al-Anon. And so it was, I've been to AA meetings with my mom years back, and the alcoholics, they're really rough with each other. It's like, you know, so you screwed your life up, you screwed your family's life up, you need to stop, don't do any more of this. But with the Adult Children of Alcoholics, it was, you didn't screw your own life up, but you need to not pass that on. It's possible to pass on those bad behaviors even if you're not drinking, even if you don't drink at all. And it's unfortunate that this happened to you, and alcohol is difficult to deal with. So now what? So it would be, yeah, now what? And that's what unschooling is. Yeah, school, blah, 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 trauma. Now what? And that's helped me a lot. When people will come and go, well, you know, I took him out of school because this thing happened and the principal said this. And I said, how many times have you told this story though? How many times are you going to continue to step away? So I was always saying, yeah, come over here where the kids are playing, be there. And so I think it helps people not to be stuck, not to wallow, not to identify as a kid who was harmed by school, not to live there in the shadow, in the sad, harmful shadow of school. I did well in school. I liked it. I played it like a video game. You know, it was like, oh, they want me to do this and they'll give me an A on a piece of paper. Oh, I want that. You know, why? But I did. And so my school trauma came when I realized that every time I got an A, somebody else didn't. Like, it was easy for me to be the top of the class. It was easy for me to pass tests without studying very hard. And then I thought, there are some of those kids who were B students who would have been thrilled to one single time get the highest grade in that class. And I wasn't thrilled. I took it for granted. And so then I started to feel guilty. And what about the kids who couldn't even get a B? And then and when I was teaching, I felt bad about getting bad grades. I did not like it. And I taught for 6 years. So my deschooling had to include all of those years. So a kid who's been to school for 2 years is going to be deschooled by Christmas, you know, or whatever, depending on the time. Yeah. But the parents who went to school for maybe 10 or 13 years plus university, plus maybe they taught or they had their kids in school, all of those years are that parent, that adult now having school infused into them, all of them. They were school kids in the summer because they were on vacation thanks to school. They were school kids all year. They went to bed or not because of school. They got a new backpack or not because of school. Like, all their life was based on school. And strangers say, what, you know, where do you go to school? Do you like your teacher? What grade are you in? So to have kids who don't have that, maybe sometimes the greatest danger to the kids' unschooling progress is the parents having a relapse. So don't screw it up was not bad advice. That was good advice. Don't disturb the peace of their playing, because it needs to be calm and continuous. It needs to be something they can count on calmly, that they just accept that that's how life is, that they will learn, that learning is fun, that it's easy, that everything ties in together. And so when parents see that, sometimes the parents go, oh, I wish I'd been unschooled. I really wish my life had been like this. I wish my parents had been like I'm being now. that by itself is kind of healing. Like the fantasy of having had more patient, more accepting parents, I think can be like a little hot tub of, I don't know. Is that fair to say that imagination is healing? But I guess in a way it can be. Not
Totally.
Because
yourself
the professional, totally. It's never too late to have a good childhood.
Okay, good.
I think we can easily say that.
And
I think you're totally right, but I do remember back when I was a beginner unschooler and I would have my, at least internally, my relapses more frequently. The three things I would need was to remember to be soft on myself. You know, I'm having a relapse. It's okay. Just calm down, pretend it's Sunday, think about it tomorrow, this whole peaceful thing. Instead of beating myself up about it, just be a little more kind. The other thing was I would make sure I had a friend to call, someone who was also an unschooler, so I would have someone to talk to. And as they grew up, my children, I actually just talked to them about it.
Yeah.
They got to know me in this. I'm from a family of academics, and I was in school, in high school, university, the whole thing. It's very hard for me to imagine this life outside of it. And sometimes I relapse into thinking, oh, curriculum, oh, you know, academia. And they were pretty young when they started to understand sometimes mom's having a relapse. So I didn't go buy school books, but I would sit down and talk to them about, today I just feel like shit about this whole thing. And I have all my doubts and all my fears. And how about we make some popcorn and take out some blankets and watch a movie and hug a whole lot, and we can sit here and be together, and I'll get over it, I promise, at some point. So that's just, well, I don't know how many people this will work for, but I think this guilt feeling and this feeling, when you say don't screw it up, I mean, the me 10 years ago would have been fearful after getting that piece of advice, even though it's the right thing to say. I would be so afraid that I would screw things up, that would just make things worse on a bad day. So just in order to not screw it up, have a plan for those days where you might screw it up. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Can I send some links to go with this that you can
Yeah.
put?
Absolutely.
Okay, because something Skylar, oh no, it was Rippy Dusseldorf. Rippy wrote something. She said one time I had said, well, you know, if it doesn't work, you can always put your kids in school. And I wasn't saying it's not going to work for you, you might as well put your kids in school. I was saying it's not, when people step away from the schools and they decide to unschool, if it doesn't work, you could put your kids back in school. That's not mean. That's not hateful. That's like, we haven't really left the planet, right? We're right here.
Yeah, we could just go back. Yeah.
So I was trying to soothe her, like, it's okay. But she took it as she might as well give up and put her kids in school. And what I was trying to say is, we can help you step more away from the school so you're not as flipped out. She said she just was really upset, and then she showed that to her friend and said, I'm really upset because of this. And she said, but don't you think she's saying this? So it was just the interpretation. She saw the interpretation through her schooly eyes, and it scared her. But she wrote all that up and how she felt about it. So I want to send you the link to that, because it's really inspiring. And I could feel guilty, but I didn't feel guilty. So you're saying about guilt. You didn't say guilt, but you said something, stress, you know, the feelings that you have when you're, you know, keyed up and scared. Those are useful, because if you weren't scared, why would you change? If you weren't stressed, why would you? So stress is like standing on a wall, and you're got to jump one way or the other. You can't stand on the wall forever. If you're not stressed, you're just like, leaning on the wall, you could take a nap or not. You won't change. So in a way, the stirring people to the point that you say, you don't have forever to do this. Your kids are getting older by the day. How many times are you going to relapse? Get over there and do it. Do it. That's not mean. some people see it as mean because they came for people to say, oh, you're just as good a mother as anybody. Don't worry about it. Anything you do, we're sure is good, because all mothers love their children equally, and don't let anybody else tell you differently. Whatever you feel in your heart is the thing that your children need. It's like, hold on. She came here to ask us how to unschool. So what is this balm of don't change anything about? So anytime anybody started that, we would stop them and say, you can do that on your own page. You can start your own group to tell people there's nothing to change. Because they came to us, they came to unschoolers and said, help me become an unschooler too. Yeah. That takes step away from all of that. Step away from people who are telling you there's nothing to change. Step away from the idea that life should look like school. We're right here. You're still in your same house. Your kid's still on the same couch. But let us help you change your mind thought. Your mind thought. That's not even a word. Your
perspective, maybe.
Perspective. Thank you.
I don't know. I don't know if you were looking for that word, but it would work for me.
I was making words up, but that's it. Yeah. So it turned out one of the first things that we really saw was improvements in marriages because of that. Because it's saying, well, my husband has hobbies, he likes them, he's learning, it's not hurting anything, let him do it. Instead of, well, yeah, I know you're working in the garage, but I want you to come and help with dinner. Or, just arbitrary, sort of arbitrary rules that were there. It's like, why can't you do that? And out of generosity to let him finish his woodworking project or whatever he's doing. Why can't you support each other's, the parents support each other's hobbies and interests the same way they're learning to support the kids? And that was helpful, not only to the person who was offered the generosity and the time and the space, but to the person who did it. Because being nicer makes you nicer. That's a truism that's true. I mean, it can't help, like, better's better. You can't argue with statements like that. And so when we were dealing with a lot of people who had been trained to say, the world should be 50-50, the world should be fair, don't let anybody push you around, you have your rights, moms need a lot of me time, and there are all these slogans that come along to tell people to be unhappy, stay unhappy, and fight.
That's just so precise. That's why I'm laughing. It's really funny. It's really funny because, oh my God. So we're back to the, could you be a little kind and relax? Maybe?
Yeah. So it's okay. Why? Again, it's not what are you doing? They're doing it because other people told them to. They're doing it because when they do that, other female friends of theirs go, good job. Don't let him push you around. He's a jerk. All guys are jerks. So it's like, okay, wait. If you can see your children as individuals with different ideas and different hobbies, and they're humans, and you see them as whole humans, let's say this: your husband used to be a little boy. He had whatever traumas and problems that he had. He doesn't need you to be his mean mom. He doesn't need another mean mom.
No.
People would jump on me and they would say, oh, I didn't know you were a fundamentalist Christian, which I wasn't, and I'm not. They would say, I didn't know you were so supportive of marriage. It's like, yeah, because we're talking about little kids. I am supportive of marriage. I'm supportive of people being kind and generous and maintaining this environment that unschooling needs. And they said, so you're saying that if a woman is beaten and abused, she shouldn't get divorced? I said, that's a jump, isn't it? How about, yes, some people get divorced. Does that mean that everyone should get divorced so that the person who got divorced feels better? Because that's what a lot of divorce is about. I was in a marriage. Oh, I don't want to start a story. I was married and divorced in the early 70s. I married a friend of mine because his parents had both died within a couple of years of each other. And
that's a good reason to marriage.
Oh, yeah. So I knew the family for a long time, and they were going to take the kids away from him. So the kids were going to have to go live with their aunt who didn't want them in another state. And they said, well, it's because you're not married. He was 23 and I was 21. And I said, really? Is that why? My boyfriend had left the country because his parents sent him away, and I was mad about that. And so he wasn't coming back. His parents got him a one-way ticket and blah, 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 blah. Long story. Sorry. But we ended up getting divorced after a few years. But so easy it was to get divorced, and so much support to get divorced. And I just was shocked. It was like a grease slide in those days to divorce. And I read an article with a like a blog post that a marriage therapist had written, and I always thought I would find it again, and I have not found it again. But he said the training of marriage therapists in those days was not at all to keep marriages together. It was to encourage people to find themselves. Self-actualization. Oh, you need to know who you are. You need to know who you are separate from these other people. You need to find yourself. And so he said they weren't even trying to keep marriages together. Not that I went to a marriage therapist at the time. I'm just saying that the whole culture was like flush marriages. And it was almost impossible to stay married in the 70s. Every time I see some friends with a 50th anniversary, I'm so impressed because it was almost impossible. So there is that culture. Women will come to other women and go, oh, just leave him. I'll help you. We'll help you. They won't help you. They don't help you. It's just like the things that people say when a marriage is not going well are no better than those speeches that people give kids at the grocery store, the doctor's office waiting room. Where do you go to school? Who's your teacher? Do you like her? It's just a little speech. Oh, you should leave. You don't need to put up with this. You deserve better. I'll help you. They won't help you. It's just damaging. It's damaging. And when it's damaging to children, then I get cranky. So yeah, I was encouraging people to be nicer to their spouses. Oh, big crime. So I was getting criticized for that. For telling people, if you be nice, you might stay together happily and want to and be glad you did. You might, when you get older, still be with a person who loved you when you were younger. That's awesome. Instead of being with your second or third husband who doesn't even really know you very well. Anyway, so that's one of the first changes that became apparent, is that marriages were solidifying, being stabilized, and we didn't expect that. I didn't expect that. And other people were going, wow, that's cool. Let's collect some stories about that. So that became standard. So then people said, oh, Sandra doesn't think that single people can unschool. I've had that criticism too. What I have said is that when people used to call me and say, I really want to homeschool, I want to take my kid out of school today. On the phone, like they put my phone number in a book that was in all the libraries in New Mexico. And I would get these phone calls for a while. I didn't do it. And I would say, okay, first of all, do you have an ex-husband? And someone would go, yes. How hostile? How are his parents living? How hostile? You know, like what points do you have against you? Because you may not be able to take your kids out of school. Are you married? Are you married? Yes. Do you and your husband get along? Yes. So that's like moving toward the, okay, I can help you. But if it's like, yeah, no, he just left, he hates me, he wants the kids, like, okay, you need to probably look into it gradually, keep them in school, you know, look at this. I had a whole different speech for people who weren't going to be able to do it. And when people get divorced, I've seen this, when people get divorced and immediately the dad says, yeah, no, I like unschooling. It's great. It's fine. That lasts until he gets a girlfriend who's a teacher or an ex-teacher or whatever. And then he needs to keep her happy. And she tells him all the bad stuff about his ex-wife and about how their kids are doomed. And she doesn't really seem to want to get in the mood to be with him unless he pulls his kids out of school, you know, puts his kids in school. I don't know. There are pressures on men sometimes. And so you avoid that if you don't get divorced. And you can't guarantee that you avoid it always, because ex-husbands don't stay by themselves forever, maybe. And even if they do, they may not be inclined to help you anymore if they're that mad at you. So there come spite fights and new influences. And I can't help the fact that there have been many cases where sometimes even with lawyers and judges, those kids are put in school. And it's very sad. It's very sad. And those stories came even later than the how about you take care of your marriage stories. But so I would go, you need to try to stay married so you can keep unschooling. Just casually, I would say that. You know, it helps with your unschooling in more ways than one. It helps that the family's peaceful and calm and nobody's fighting and being insulting. Because the kids will pick that up if the parents insult each other. They'll either take sides or learn to insult people. You know, it's just all that negativity. So gradually I started to see how much positivity helps and negativity hurts. Gradually that moved, like the whole idea about making choices. We talked about making choices in another talk back, right? But that came to me from another club I was in, but you move incrementally away. It's not you're always making a choice from the same place you started. It's like as you become more confident and calm about unschooling matters and about learning outside of school and about being kind, not hurting your kids. You're not spoiling them by just being nice and saying yes a lot. The more you get into that space, now the choices you're making are all within there. It's the craziest school version of me having to decide with my brand new unschooling self which way to go, which choice to make. No, it is my worst unschooling self arguing with my best unschooling self, but it's all there now. Now it's all within the range that you want it to be. So now the choices are not so wildly disparate and shocking and stressful. So the stress gradually goes away as you step away from the stress source. And so the more school stories people tell, or divorce stories, or fighting stories, or the more you encapsulate and preserve those negative stories and repeat them, the more they are affecting you. They're staying with you. You're still living there. And so Adult Children of Alcoholics was very helpful, because they said, okay, what happened to you when you were little? What was that, your mom, her natural best self, or was that alcohol? It's really unfortunate. So don't pass that on, okay? And then I went to La Leche League, which was about nursing babies. And nowadays, a lot of people have seen babies nursed, but we hadn't. People my age hadn't. And so it was, yeah, I bet your mom would have if she could have, but doctors used to discourage it. They used to do stupid stuff, like tell women to, just before you're going to nurse, wipe off your nipple with alcohol. It's like, that's not going to taste very good or feel very good. Just done. It's like, how many ways can we prevent a woman's natural biological function just to do it? Let's just screw it. It seemed like that. It seemed like the medical establishment was a little misogynistic, maybe. I don't know. But they said, but with a bottle, you can measure it, and then you know what they ate and how much, and it's great scientific measurement. So they said, that's what your mom did. That's why she did it. It's not evil. She wasn't trying to be mean. It just was really hard not to in the 50s and 40s and 50s, early 60s. So let's do better. Let's do different. Can we reclaim and rediscover how this works and how this can work? And so that was also examining why we weren't nursed and why our moms might have, if they had been able to, had known, had been encouraged and helped, might have. That would have been better for us. So let's provide better for our babies than we had. So they're very similar. Those two things were very similar. And then when I got really involved in unschooling, it's like, oh, same deal. What if your parents had not been so supportive of school? So like, my parents said, if you get in trouble at school, you're going to be in twice as much trouble at home. Okay, well, that's easy for you, isn't it? A little hard for me. I didn't get in trouble much, but it was their theory. That was their threat. And I used to get paid for good grades. Great, I'll do that. Now it's better than just an A on a piece of paper. I'm gonna get cash, not much, but get up to the game. It's a video game. You turn in your points and you get some real money. So I was predisposed, I suppose, or pre-exercised in this idea of, if you examine what you wish had happened to you and then provide that for your kids, that's better. Because that was the similarity between Adult Children of Alcoholics and La Leche. And also those two clubs were moms helping, or not just moms. Adult Children of Alcoholics wasn't just moms. But it was people voluntarily helping each other by sharing their stories and seeing which ones worked best. And so that I just passed that on to unschooling. Yeah. I spoke at a conference in St. Louis one time, and after I talked to this guy, came up, he looked kind of like a biker. He looked a little like Jesper. He comes up to me and he goes, I think you're a friend of Bill W. That's like the secret code for Alcoholics Anonymous people, because the original book, what they call the Alcoholics Big Book or something, an AA Big Book, was written by Bill W. And I said, well, my mom is. I said, Adult Children of Alcoholics. He goes, I knew it. Just from the tone of it, I guess, from the, don't whine, just do better. Don't tell us your feelings, just do better. I'm sorry about your feelings, now do better. Yeah. People would come and go, yeah, but I want to be supported. I don't want to be criticized. I want to be told I'm just as good a mom as anybody. You want to be an unschooler? Okay, well, do better. So yeah, I know I have a reputation for being mean, but that's all it is. It's like I care more about your kids' future than your feelings at the moment. Buck up.
Well, it is the right perspective, though.
Yeah.
And the healing will not happen in that pink, fluffy, you're as good as mom as anyone, and all moms love their kids. I mean, the last part is right, but you can make a lot of mistakes in the name of love. So we need some boundaries there. There
Do
is
a lot
right.
of things based on advice from other people's resentment. Some people don't want to see another family happy, and they try to sabotage it because they're not as happy.
Mm.
It's a mean human trait, and mostly a female trait, sorry, to pull someone else down. There's this, I don't know if you guys have a saying in Danish, but in English it's misery loves company.
Misery loves company. No, we don't say that, do we? Do we have something
No.
like that? No, we don't. Wow. Yeah. But it's true though.
So good for you not having that. You don't have to overcome that.
Well, it could be a human trait, just not put
No,
into
it could
words
be,
in that
could
way.
be,
I don't
we
know.
have to, like,
I
that's
don't
another
know.
one of the phrases that we have to stop giving ourselves. Like, reject that phrase as company.
But I do think that the question everything framework of unschooling, it is really the unraveling. Once you start, you remove the idea of school, you remove the idea of curriculum, you start to unjudge all the things you judge, and at least by being aware of the judgment, the unraveling also becomes of everything, including the relation we have with each other, and but the healing process of understanding I have this perspective, but someone else might have another perspective, and this is my project, and my truth is not necessarily true for everyone. This mindset has been very healing for us, I think, and also for our relations outside of the family, just knowing this is right for us and we're not going to be missionaries about it. Whatever is your, but it, I mean, I can say to someone else, that's your reality, it's not mine, in a not very hostile way. Just, that's not how I see things. That's not how I understand the world. But I do believe in your freedom more than in my truth being true for everyone. I think that has helped a lot with our relations outside of our core family.
And what all my wife said, I agree with, because I was sitting and waiting for saying this about it is the question everything of unschooling when I look at it that I think is helping one to heal past traumas and stuff, and sometimes I can still see myself saying something. And I'm like, but do you actually believe that, Jesper? Or are you saying it A, because it sounded good, or B, because it have been instilled in you during school, during growing up, and you have learned this is how it is. But now now I'm more or less always in the question everything. Should I believe that mode? I believe I was a child that's also was very questioned a lot of stuff, um, but
the thing, what I was trying to say is just, we are talking about healing still. And one part of healing is to not destroy things. How about creating a world where we don't need all that healing, because we're not mean, because we're giving each other space, because we're respecting each other. So when we question our truths and our judgment, that leaves for space for other people. I liked the thing you said about marriage and allowing. I mean, even the wording of allowing your husband to do his project, not your personal husband, but the husband in a fiction relation, to do his projects in the garage. I mean, who are these women of the 70s? That would be my mom. To say you have to come and do the dishes. I mean, it's her standard of the dishes that they have to be done now. That we could have had sandwich. We didn't need to eat from plates. So if that's who sets those ground rules? Do we really have to do the dishes before we go to bed, or could we do it tomorrow? It's I think there was in the 70s, maybe, I don't know.
It was harsh. It was harsh.
It was harsh, and it was the women's world. Now they rule everything.
It's not, that's another whole political
Yeah, maybe we
discussion.
shouldn't go there. We're running out of time. Let's
Yeah.
talk feminism next time, Sandra.
People have said to me, don't you think everyone should unschool? I'm like, no, no. Only people who really want to and really can. Because if you don't want to, or you can't, no, don't, stay away from it, because it'll only make you unhappy to have wanted something you can't have. So that's surprised some people sometimes. They expect me to be, like you said, a missionary, that I want everybody to do it. Nope. I want to stay over in my little corner and help people for free if they want to. The sun came out behind me and I've disappeared, I think. Sorry for anybody who's trying to look at me. And then there's a tree moving and it's making the sun come and go.
It is a windy, sunny episode, but most of people listen to it, so it's okay.
An audio thing.
It's more of an audio podcast, so it's okay.
It's just distracting me now. The sun behind me. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think that the healing is partly in people relaxing and seeing that they can be nicer, to give themselves permission to be nicer to other people, husbands, neighbors, the people at the store. Why do you have to be so harsh and wound up? Say wound up like you're gonna blow on somebody. It's okay to make a lower level of your baseline emotion. And you should probably remember that your kids have that lower level too, so they're not throwing that much. We're in a different topic. We're talking about adrenaline and gaming. It's not that adrenaline gaming on top of already keyed up because school is frustrating and they have to go to soccer practice in half an hour and they only have half an hour. It's not that. It's on top of a calm baseline. Now adrenaline for fun. And then after that, they're back to calm baseline in a while. So I just, it's different. It's different, isn't it? The kids are different. The whole landscape is different when you don't have that overlay of school schedule and school expectation and measurement and grades. It's so much more maybe exciting and maybe more peaceful all at the same time. Like it's just a different place, a different scenario. And so
it gets to be deciding because it's exciting, because we want it to, because we like it, and it's okay to do things that we like. We don't have to do things that we have to do. And we can do it while being kind. There's no war to win. There's no hierarchy of schoolmates to become the top of or the center person of. We can actually just be kind and okay around people who are kind and okay, which is a very different ball game from the context that we grew up in. That's the reality of it. And maybe the healing happens more or less in and of itself if we try to stay in this realm of allowing for excitement and being kind.
It does just happen. If people say, I want to come here and heal, that's not how it works. You come here and become unschoolers, and then you find out
go home and heal. Yeah.
You find out that is healing. Being that kind of mom, seeing what you've provided for those kids, seeing that you can live in such a way that you're looking at interests in learning and music and mountains and the world as it is, not the world outside the windows that might not be painted at school.
Beautiful.
Sandra, I think this is a beautiful way to stop this episode. As always, it's a big pleasure to talk to you. It's a
big pleasure.
It makes me heal a little inside to keep on the subject. Thanks a lot.
I would love to send you some links to add to this. Thank you so much.
We will. All the links you send. Perfect. Thank you for your time today, Sandra. It was
very sweet.
It was.